I'm sorry. Hey, Carlos. Thanks for being my moderator this evening. I hope you all had a wonderful, wonderful day. Carlos, I hope you had a wonderful day, sir. And we are going to have a really cool topic tonight talking about children being a blessing. And I went to a baby shower today at church, Prep for Eternity. Welcome, welcome. Went to a baby shower today at church for a um, a lady who is having her first baby, and it was just a blessing. Just overall, the whole thing was just such a blessing, and I just enjoyed it thoroughly. I don't remember the last baby shower I went to. It's been a long time. When you get to be in my age range, it's like you had lots and lots of baby showers when everybody was having babies. And then there's like, into your 40s, probably into 50s, you're kind of into that like in between stage where if you're not having a baby shower for yourself, um, I mean, I guess maybe if you're at a church with a lot of young people, you still get to enjoy that. But I have not enjoyed that in a long time. It was such a blessing. So, we're going to be talking about this tonight, children being a blessing. I'm going to drink, I have some of this Redmond salt relight. It is watermelon, it's like a salty watermelon flavor. So, anyway, I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. And also, we're going to be diving into some scripture on children being a blessing, the logistics, kind of the nitty gritty. Y'all can help me out on some of that with just what we've learned in desiring to have a large family. I think that that's a good, healthy desire to have. I don't think that all of us are blessed with children, and not all of us are blessed with the large size families that maybe we desired, but we are super thankful for the children that we do have and that we are blessed with. And we have learned some things along the way. So I'm going to be sharing some of that. Also touching on the big movement of, let me see if I can see what this is called now, because I'm not hip to all the child free movement. Have you all heard about this? I'm sure you have. I didn't know that it was actually had a title. I knew young people in general, middle-aged people, were choosing not to have children as a whole. That's like a big trend, but I did not know that it was actually like a titled movement, and it is. So I'm going to be kind of touching on some of that today, this evening too, with y'all, and we can discuss some of that and how we should be very guarded by all of those talking points and be teaching our children about those talking points. Um, and as Christians, we should not fall susceptible to those lies. So, anyway, before we get into that, of course, it's a dress day in July. I am having a repeat day because this is what I wore to the baby shower. And my little girl, Grace, she came out of her bedroom and she had on the same dress. So it was kind of super fun day that we both got to dress alike for the baby shower, which was kind of fun. So, anyway, this is my dress. You've seen it before. This is the Make Me Chic dress. And I do have it in a few different colors. And it has the flutter sleeves on it. But I have it with my cardigan tonight. So that is it. That's my dress. I have a slip on underneath of it, a different slip. And we are going to be getting into undergarments and things like that in another video at another time. But I think we can just jump on in. Um, Hidden Harvest, welcome. Caitlin's Family Farmstead, welcome. Divina's here. Prepped for Eternity is here. Carlos, of course, is here. So let's just jump into some of this tonight. And if y'all have anything else to add, just say it. Just say it, because I know how that is. When you think of something, you just got to say it. So I'm going to be going over a few verses first, that they may, Titus 2:4, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children. That's one verse. Um, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 4 through 7. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. And that does tie in with our topic this evening with children. Um, and I have one more for you here. 1 Timothy 5:14. I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. So that's our verses that we're going to be going over this evening. And then we will dive into the child free movement a little bit and how Christians should guard against that. And we should be very openly teaching our children to guard against that because it's pervasive in our culture today. Um, so going back to Titus 2:4, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children. I've heard this taught before when I was a younger mom, that our natural nature, our natural flesh is to not love our husbands, right, all the time, to not love our children all of the time. And we see that displayed for us in the world around us, right? Where the mothers can become bitter, resentful towards their husband, towards their children. They cannot be gentle. They can be, and I'm not speaking of gentle parenting because that's a whole nother topic for another day, and I believe that is erroneous. I believe that's an error of teaching. Not that we shouldn't be gentle, but that theology behind that is very um, troublesome. So maybe we'll touch on that another day. But I'm not talking about that when I say we should be gentle. Um, so we need to be reminded. We need to remind ourselves to love our husbands and to love our children. And we need to not only remind ourselves, but also encourage other sisters in Christ to teach them to love their husbands and to love their children. And how we teach that is by example. How we teach that is in lifestyle, in general conversation. When a sister in the Lord might call or talk to you on the phone, or maybe she comes over to visit and we're having conversation, our our mouth, our words should always be um, uplifting towards promoting, I should say, not uplift, but promoting sisters in Christ, other sisters in Christ, to love their husbands, to love their children. And you might say, well, that's just a natural thing, but that isn't always a natural thing. And if you've been married for any amount of time, you know that there's seasons with marriage, right? You go through all different things. There's seasons with raising children. There's seasons where you have multiple little ones and it is hard and it is difficult. There's seasons in marriage that you might go through financial hardships. You might go through personal hardships. All different types of things might happen, and it's not always easy um to love, right? So we know that with the world and with its example, and that's the opposite. And how do we um remind ourselves how to love our husbands and love our children is being in the word, prayer, right? Staying close to the Lord, and focusing on our relationship with the Lord, so that way we know what true love is and we can be reminded of his love over us, and then we have enough to pour out to our husbands and our children, unmerited favor, right? Unmerited love. We love them, um, despise themselves sometimes, right? Despite themselves, those little ones, right? So that's what that is. And then the love verse, right? 1 Corinthians 13. Of course, this gets quoted at every wedding, right? It's hanging on every newlywed's wall, right? Is 1 Corinthians 13:4 through 7, and it's talking about charity. And if you read through these lines, charity suffereth long, right? So unselfish. And when we think about this child free movement and um, just academia and what they're pushing, even from elementary school all the way all through high school into college years. They're telling these kids lies about overpopulation. They're telling them lies about how they can save the environment, how they can be responsible to save the environment through not having children, right? And they're promoting selfishness, self-centered. We are our own gods, right? They promote that, and that's what the world does, right? And in our flesh, we are selfish creatures. So First Corinthians reminds us that we need to suffer long with people, and I think that being a parent, being a mother, being a wife, you learn how to suffer long with people. You learn patience, and that's God's design. My husband always says that, um, you know, becoming a parent teaches you so much about the Father's love towards us, because it just shows you his mercy towards us and his long suffering towards us. And we're so rebellious sometimes, and we're so thick-headed, and we don't get it, right? And we're just like little kids, but yet he's so patient and so loving towards us. Um so suffers long is kind, right? Being a kind mother, being a kind wife, it's just like in that word good, right? That the women would be good. Be good, right? That's what Coghill always says, be good, y'all. um Good, patient, kind. I have a good friend of mine who is from Italy, and she is so patient and so kind towards her little children. And she grew up in Italy, so her culture was very different. And as a mother, she is so attentive. Now she is strong, and she has parameters around things. She's not a gentle parenting mother, but she is gentle, and she is so nurturing, and she is so kind. And the way she speaks to her children is like, it's so wonderful to be around. She's always just like, "Oh, sweetie pie, let me help you with this. Oh, honey, you're doing this. Oh, sweetie pie, this." And it's just so sweet. And it takes me back, because even though in our American culture, we are so um, just hardened as women, are not that nature is naturally to us sometimes, as mothers, because it's not what's being demonstrated, in front of us. So I just love the way that she loves her children, and how she speaks to them is just, it's so encouraging. And I tried to adapt some of that, um, right off the bat. Once I, met her and spent some time with her, I was like, wow, I really need to emulate that in my household, because that is nurturing, right? That is bringing them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, is to nurture them. They're gentle little souls that we only have for a short time. So verse 5, doth not behave itself unseemly. So you shouldn't be, as an adult, I'll just say that, definitely as a mother and a wife, you should not be behaving yourself unseemly. You can fill in the blanks and figure out what would be unseemly, but we see this all around. seeketh not her own. So, not selfish, not prideful, not focused on your own um, aspirations, your own things that you need to get done today, but focused on how you can serve others, right? Especially when you're a mother and a wife, is not easily provoked. That's a really good trait, and that same terminology is used when it's talking to fathers. When it says, "Provoke not your children to wrath," to the fathers, that's an instruction. So that's an instruction to us, just generally as Christians. We should not be easily provoked. I don't know what the new term would be. What do they say now? Like when somebody freaks you out, you're triggered. That's the word. That's the word. Yeah. Well, I would say provoked would be like that, right? So if your child does something, just learn to laugh about it. Just learn to, if they do something and it's just like, um, wow, that's a big mess, You have to learn to laugh at it because it's just a season. And I'm not saying that there's not times that you need to talk to your child and you need to discipline your child for certain things when they're little and everything like that. Of course, yes, we're laying a groundwork. But there's times where you just have to laugh and you just have to not be provoked. You cannot let a toddler get the best of you, or even a 15-year-old get the best of you. You have to have self-control, and you have to put on charity first. And when you show that self-respect and self-control and that you're not easily provoked, it really just elevates the respect that that child's going to give you, no matter what the age is there. Think of no evil. So not saying evil things over our children, or saying, he's bad, or I would never say, you know, just being very careful of your words and what you say, or, when you're explaining something, maybe even to somebody else that might be a challenge that you're dealing with your child, you're not speaking evil over that child. You're just saying, right now, I'm kind of dealing with this. Would you know, like, what did you do or whatever? But not like, yeah, he's just naughty. The opposite should be true. We should be telling our children when they're little, you're not naughty. Why are you acting like this? This isn't like you. You're my boy. I love you. Why you want to act like this? And usually that really pulls on their heart. And a lot of times with my children, they would start crying because they would be really sorry. And sometimes when they're little, I know I use this with different ones that were very strong-willed, like, hey, I think you're acting foolish right now, and I know that you're not foolish. So, are you going to keep acting foolish, or do you want to act wise? Like, let's decide here what you want to do, or do you need to go to your room? So that would be a thing. I see you're acting foolish here, and I know you're not foolish. Let's not make a foolish decision here, that kind of thing. Rejoiceth not in iniquity. So we're not boasting about our children's sins, right? Or what they do wrong, right? But rejoiceth in truth, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. So as mothers and as wives, um, we do set the bar. We set the standard, we set the bar for the home, and we are able to bear all things, right? Believe all things, hope all things, endure all things. We have a vision for our family. We know what we want for our children, for our marriages. We know what we want them to be, and we strive towards that. And that, by the grace of God, gives us the ability to bear all things. So I think I touched on all of those. Oh, last one. 1 Timothy 5:14. I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. So, young ladies, if you're wondering what the will of God is for your life, that's it. Um, I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, and give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. And I would say, if you are married and you have children or a child and you are guiding your house well, you aren't going to have much occasion to speak reproachfully because you are going to be busy, busy at it. And yeah, that is the truth of the matter, is that there won't be enough time in the day to do what you need to do, let alone to be in anybody else's business, um, minding anybody else's business, or all over social media, or doing whatever. There's just not going to be time for it if you're doing what you are called to do well. And not saying that all young girls will get married. Not saying that they all will have children, but that is a really wonderful thing. That's a wonderful desire to have. That's a wonderful biblical goal to strive towards, I would say. So here it is. Here we are with the child free movement. And it's saying, I just looked it up on Google. I just typed in trend not to have children. And this is what popped up. It says, this trend sits alongside some research that suggests growing numbers of adults in the West, so it's not just in the US, may be actively choosing not to have children. In the US, a 2021 Pew Research Center study showed some 44% of non parents aged 18 to 49 don't think they will have children, up from 37% in 2018. So, 44% of people aged 18 to 49 think that they will not have children. That is alarming. I think that is just a telltale sign of where we are in society, how self absorbed our society is, how far from reality most people's lives are, just selfish, self absorbed. And I'm going to leave you all a link after we're done this live stream. I will leave a link. There was a video, and it was done by a young person. They were interviewing different people on the street and asking them about having children. And, you know, there was a couple words in there. I think they might have blocked some words out, but it wasn't appropriate to put on this live stream. But I would, as long as you don't have little ears around, it was just, it was really shocking to just hear from people, just the general public, where people stand on having children. And, you know, even in, y'all can tell me over here in the chat if you've ever heard this, but, you know, even in Christian circles, I have been hearing since probably, I don't know, early 2000s, I'll just say, probably like 2001, 2002. I remember vividly the first time I heard a neighbor who just loved, she loved children. She had 6 of her own children. And she shared with me that, you know, she was concerned for her children to have children because the world was so bad, you know, and that was back then. I know I've heard it many, many times since. The concern of grandparents or people my age, my husband's age, for their children to have children. And this is from Christian people, or they'll say, well, if they just have 1 or 2, but that would probably be enough because, you know, it's so expensive and the world is so bad and we don't know what's going to happen. And, you know, all of this fear mongering. And it's just so, um, it's just wrong. It's just wrong. It's not true. It's it's not helpful to our children that are entering into early adulthood, even through their teen years, when they're forming ideas about their worldview and children, and if they're desire to have children and all of that, even their younger years, younger than teens, they're thinking about all of these things. And if we're just instilling fear and worry and dread based on what the world is doing, I know I was talking a little bit about this topic with my son tonight, and he's 18. And he said, well, mom, he said, if, um, you know, everybody stopped having kids because they were worried about the way the world was going, we would never be here because, uh, back during World War I, World War II. I mean, what if they just said, hey, this is crazy? I mean, you got Europe, you got Germany, you got all the things going on, the Great Depression, all of this stuff, right? Well, let's just like rack me, I'm out. I'm done. It's just a good time to stop having children, right? Um, and what if they did? Like none of us would be here. So that's what my son said. And I was just happy that he had a good grasp on reality, right? We don't get our ideas from the world. We don't look around and make our judgments based on what we can see around us. We walk by faith, and we know that children are a blessing, children are a heritage of the Lord, children are a gift from God, and they are a blessing to married people. And um, it's a limited time that you're able to have children. And I know that my husband and I wish that we had had more children, and it wasn't for lack of trying. but um, but yeah, you get to a certain age and you're like, well, I guess we probably aren't going to have any more. And how sad that that's over. And you don't think that that's ever going to be over, when you are in your 20s or 30s, and you just think that um this time will go on forever. And it seems like some days drag on forever, right? The young moms that have a bunch of little ones, and they are hard and they are intense days, some days, right? And you're tired, and you're making food, and you're cleaning up messes and Cheerios and naps and diapers and all of the things, and you're just like, is this ever going to end? And it does. It does end. And they do get bigger, and they grow up, and you know um and you get to those phases, and then you're like, oh well, now it would be nice to have a couple more. But that's not always exactly how fertility works, right? And so my husband and I always say now, to when we meet younger families younger than us, we say, just, I know it's hard, and you think that it's crazy hard right now, and it is, but it will get easier. And we so regret not having more when we could have had more, because you kind of get to the end and you're like, oh, wow. I mean, it would kind of be really nice now. I mean, I'm 45, and we're really chilled out, and we understand that like toddlers are toddlers, and you just got to be consistent with them, and you kind of get a grapple on things. And then it's just like, oh, well, I don't know if the Lord's going to give us any more though. So it's just the way that it is. And we've been very like vocal to young people, like, we know it's hard now, we know it's crazy now, you're in the weeds, you're in the thick of it, but it's like, don't stop having them now. Like, because you will look back eventually and be like, oh man, I've never met anybody that said they would have had less. I've always met people that wish that they had had more. And even secular people, even non-professing Christian people, but they would just say, I wish we had had more, I wish we had had a bigger family. They're such a blessing. Even people that have adult children that go astray and do different things and, walk away from the Lord and just do whatever, they still everybody who I've ever spoken to has always said they wish they could have had more. So that's just something that I just figured I would share with y'all. And I will share this link to this child-free movement. Um, and this guy that's interviewing people on the street. Of course, it's totally secular type people that he's interviewing. But the danger in it, I think, is that this is what's being pushed in our culture. So if your children are on social media, if your children are on YouTube watching stuff, if they are in some type of school environment, they're going to hear these theories. And we should be openly talking to them about these things because, they think that they're going to save the planet by not having more children. They think that they're going to, just be able to live these totally selfish lives and have more money. And they just promise them the world if they just have less kids or not have any kids at all, even better. And it's just super sad. Like it's just a lie from Satan. And I don't know. I mean, the world's going to fall for it, but we as Christians should not fall for it. We should be encouraging our children. The Lord has everything in his control. He has us in his hands. Um, and nothing's going to happen to us unless if he allows it to happen to us. So we have nothing to fear. We cannot fear what man is doing or will do to us. That is not for us. Eternity is a long time, and um, we're only here for a very, very short time in the spectrum of eternity. So um, we don't need to base our decisions on the temporal, right? They say like the dirty now and now. Like we shouldn't here and now or whatever. We shouldn't do that, right? So let's see. Does anybody have anything for me? Greatest ever. My daughter ran off and eloped in Hawaii last year. I haven't seen my son in 2 years. Never in a million years would I have predicted this. Yeah, greatest ever. They're going to make their own decisions, right? And um, I have a friend who has 11 children, and I think she said five of them do not speak to her. Um, One daughter is totally just, she doesn't even know if she's dead or alive, anything just off the wagon. Um, so it's just the reality that we can't control our children. They are their own people. They're going to make their own decisions. And you know, it doesn't help with the heartbreak and the, of that, all of that, but it doesn't take away from God's promises either, that he, he gave us children to be a blessing to us. And this world is fallen, this world is riddled with sin, but God's promises are still true and they still stand. And um I wouldn't want to like have less children based on fear that some might, rebel and leave and run away. Some might, but that's not in my control, right? Natalie Lynn says, good evening. I've been so blessed by these evening live streams. I'm glad you have. I've really enjoyed being on here. And I was thinking tonight, my husband's like, maybe just take a break tonight. I was tired when I got back from the baby shower. And then I sat down for a few minutes. I was like, no, I got to get on there because I was so blessed by this baby shower. It was just so neat to just be at a baby shower that, they these ladies just love the Lord, and it was simple. It wasn't over the top, it wasn't worldly, it was just so awesome. And of course, it was like sisters and sister-in-laws and mothers and mother-in-laws, and it was just a blessing all around, all together. It wasn't extravagant by any means, but it was just beautifully done and just so sweet and so simple. And it was, she's expecting her first little baby boy, and it was just super awesome. I was just very blessed by it. And um, I'm like, no, I have to get on here and do a video because, um, yeah, this just, it was just too good to not pass along the blessing. Like I wish y'all could have been there because it was just too sweet. So anyway, um, so some tips and things. This is also goes with culture, I guess, and these are things that I think that we have learned, me and my husband, over the years with having 6 children. And we learned these things. I mainly learned them from my husband because he came from I won't say a big family, 6. There were 6 in his family, so mid-sized family, I guess. And so he shared a lot of these things with me when we were young parents. And so here's some just things that I think that are good to teach our children that are growing up in our homes, and especially when they go through their young adult years, just passing along this information. And it goes along with not being conformed to the world's ideals and like the world, whatever the world says a birthday party should be like, or how many sports your kids need to be in to live a fulfilled life, or how many times they have to go to a big amusement park a year to have a happy childhood, or whatever type of vacation or whatever, right? So the world teaches us certain expectations, and definitely in the West, right? We have these certain expectations, even as Christians. Christian parents are succumbing to these expectations. And in doing so, they're saying, we can't afford to have a big family. We have to have less children because, of course, Johnny needs a Pinterest nursery, and he needs, a faux tree in his nursery, and he needs a, $1,000 crib and all the bedding, and he needs all of these things to match, and he needs all, from birth, right, from birth all the way through. And then we have to pay for Johnny's college indoctrination, and all the things, right, and in between that. And I was told that by my dad when I first had our first son. He said, well, yeah, I said, I don't think I'm going back to work. And he said, well, he needs to be able to, go to Disney World once a year, and he needs to be able to whatever. He was giving me a list. And I said, Dad, all he needs is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a mom that loves him at home. That's what he needs. And then he was quiet after that. But he doesn't need that. He doesn't need a brand new minivan to be toted around in. He doesn't need to be involved in every swim club and soccer club and extracurricular activity. He doesn't need the finest clothing from the children's place. He doesn't need any of that stuff. And neither do I, by the way. I need to be his mother, right? I need to be selfless. And, if the Lord provides, praise the Lord. The Lord doesn't provide, if you go through those seasons where it's slim pickings, praise the Lord. If you have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, praise the Lord, right? So some things that I've learned with expectations, and this really does help with the pressure that the world puts on parents today. I see a lot with young mothers, is social media has just done a horrible job on young mothers. I mean, things that my mom and my grandmother certainly didn't have any pressure of. Um, it's just they're just bombarded with these expectations by social media and their friends and church family, even in real life, real family. So here's some simple things with expectations that me and my husband did. One thing is eating simple food. So we've done this for years. We've done it in different ways, but we just eat very, very simply. We don't spend money on processed, boxed, frozen, pre-made. It's expensive, and I honestly don't know how people do it. Like I really, really don't know. When I go to the grocery store and I see like the $20 frozen lasagna, how do you do that? Like I don't know how you afford that kind of stuff when you have, more than one child. It's so expensive, and it's so unhealthy and not good for you. But besides all that, it's just so expensive. So eating simply, and my grandma, she used to always tell me that she's like, you can feed a lot of kids on you can, you can squeak by. She did go through the Great Depression, but she said, you can squeak by with just, a couple vegetables or whatever on your plate. Now we're carnivore now, so our eating is extremely simple, but we'll talk about that maybe a different month. But that makes it even more refined and more simple. But just eating basic, simple foods and stop eating out. Nobody can afford to eat out. Like you just can't. If you think you can afford to eat out, you're just sadly mistaken because nobody can afford that today. The prices of eating out is just crazy. And if I went through a drive-through with 3 children, let alone 6, um you're dropping 50 bucks at least, probably more than that. And at $50 worth of meat or $50 worth of vegetables or fruit or whatever it is that you're eating, but it's a whole food, that's quite a bit that you can get to feed your family for the week. I mean, if you're doing that once a week, it's just it's literally going to eat your lunch. You're literally not going to have any money. And my husband used to do financial planning for 15 years, and the amount of money people spend on eating out is ridiculous, and it would make you go broke just on eating out. um, Limit to one used vehicle if possible. My husband's always had a work vehicle, so that has helped. But even in those times where he didn't have a work vehicle, we had two very, very used vehicles. Most of our marriage, with only two exceptions, and they were big, massive regrets in our life that we use as teaching opportunities to teach our children to never ever buy new vehicles because it's a big fat waste of money. But buying used vehicles and driving used vehicles, and if you can have one vehicle, absolutely have one vehicle. It just saves you so much. And my grandmom used to say they always had one vehicle, and she ran a business from home. And she said, I wasn't going anywhere anyway. I was home. So if you're home, um and there is a blessing in having a second vehicle. When we had an emergency last week and I ended up in the ER with one of my little ones and he needed stitches, and I was so blessed at that time to have a vehicle in the driveway that I could put him in the van and take him to the ER and get stitches, and I didn't have to call my husband, wait for him to drive home. But even still, if it was just that inconvenience, it's still worth it if that's what you have to do, to cut costs and just to be realistic on things. We known families that have large families and they will spend all their money on some brand new minivan or some brand new big giant van. And it's like, you spent 30,000, $50,000 on a vehicle and you're home 99% of the time. And when you do go somewhere, Most of the time, you don't have all 10 kids with you. Most of the time, you only have like 2 or 3 because, you left the other ones home to be with dad or to be with one of the older children. And, the only time when you're really all together and need to go, I don't even think that it's necessary. I think that it's just we've been sold a bill of goods that we need to all be able to pile into one vehicle because, like, we've known big families over the years, going back like 20 years ago, and they had 8 children, and they never had a big monstrous vehicle. They just all piled into one normal size vehicle, and they squished in, and they made it happen, and before you know it, one of your children will be driving, and then you have 2 vehicles. Or the mom drives one vehicle. They used to do this. The mom drove one vehicle and the dad drove another vehicle, and you put half the kids in one and half the kids in another, and they're both used vehicles. And if they die or break, it's not the end of the world because you didn't spend $50,000 on a vehicle. And honestly, we know another family that I was going to say, and then the older kids start driving, and then they drive kids around, and it all works out. You never need to spend that much money, and especially on a minivan. I mean, I just think that is the most horrible decision because minivans are disgusting and they just get trashed. And even if you're not eating in them, they just kids abuse minivans. I would never buy a fancy new minivan. Um, and I was going to say, we knew another family that had 10 children. They're from Tennessee. And they bought 2 minivans, used minivans. And they said, even when we go somewhere like on a big family trip or something, they're like, there's no way all 10 children plus him and his wife want to be in one vehicle. Like, do you know how much chaos that is in one vehicle? Like, that's just a lot of people in one vehicle. It's a lot of logistics. They're like, we have found over the years that it is so much more peaceful to have 2 normal sized minivans, break the kids up half and half. Mom drives one, dad drives another. You take turns, you stop. If kids want to switch out, this little kid wants to go and hang out with the other kids. It just gives everybody more space, more room, more peace of mind. He was just like, yeah, we will never ever be like one of those people with the big giant van because it's just way more realistic to have 2 normal size minivans. So it's just whatever. That's just my little soapbox on vehicles. But um another thing that we never succumbed to was the big birthday party mentality. So, parents can spend a fortune on birthday parties, and parents can spend a fortune on all of the things: weddings, baby showers, bridal showers, all of the things. Today, in our world today, in our culture today, everything has giant price tags, giant expectations, unrealistic in most people's cases, unless you're just very, very wealthy. Most of this is very unrealistic, and it never was like that. And it's just good to remind um, children and people about reality because that's just not reality. So we never did big birthday parties, and we aren't sorry about that. Our children don't feel neglected because they didn't have some big birthday party. We never went to big birthday parties either because I learned really early on when our first son was young that if we weren't going to have big birthday parties, I wasn't going to take my child to other people's big birthday parties. And we had family members who did big birthday parties, and we had friends who did big birthday parties, and we did not go to them because then that plants that in your child's mind if you go there and it's like, well, Johnny had a bouncy house and balloons and like a table full of presents, and all I get is like a cake and special bowl of macaroni and cheese for dinner or something. So it's like How lame, like, my parents really stink, and that's what it does if you are holding to a standard and then you're letting your kids go and like see everything else. Of course they're going to resent that. They're kids, right? So we never did that. We would just opt to say we can't make it to the party, but we'll catch up with you later and we'll give you a gift later. And I didn't succumb to the pressure of all of the big giant gift giving pressure either. Like, I actually learned this from a friend of mine. She grew up on a dairy farm. She was very, very grounded, just a very salt of the earth type person. And I loved her family's dairy farm, and I just a farm. This was not a Pinterest farm, but it was a farm. Like, it was awesome. But she would come, like, after one of my children had a birthday. She had little kids the same age. She would come and she would, like, put something, whatever it was, some kind of little gift she got in a grocery bag, and wrap it up like that with some tape and give it to one of my kids. And then her little boys, she had little boys, they would make little homemade cards, birthday cards for my kids. And they would get their gift when we caught up. Like, whenever we got together again, she would just say, "Oh, we have the birthday present for, Matt or whatever." And it would just be wrapped in a little paper bag or grocery sack and a little homemade card on it. And I learned that from her, and I was like, "How awesome." Like, how great is that? Because she's not being peer pressured into, you have to have the right card, and you have to have a $5 gift bag and tissue paper, and you have to have a $20 gift. And no, there's nothing like that. It was just like some thoughtful little thing that they made or baked or picked up somewhere that was just little, and wrapped in a little grocery sack and given to you. I don't know, I just thought that was awesome. I really learned so much from her, and I think it was because of her roots of growing up on a farm. And her family just was very not indoctrinated into all of the expectations that we have today. So yeah, no extracurricular sports. We learned that by default. I was guilty of that. I had them in, my oldest one and my second one, in swim classes and instrument classes all at the same time. Soccer things, activities, 4-H things. I tried everything. Karate. I was signing them up for everything because I thought that's what you had to do to be a good mom. And I quickly learned by the time we had three that it was just a waste of time. You're chasing your tail in circles. You're like a hamster on a wheel if you have three of them like that. And you're wasting money. You're missing out on normal life. Like, rather than just throwing all the kids together, that spontaneity of life where you can just say, let's throw everybody in the van and let's go to the park tonight. Let's go grill some hamburgers and let's let the kids swim. Or you don't have that when you're pigeonholed into, Johnny's got soccer practice Friday night at 5 o'clock, and it's like rush, hustle, get dinner fed, everybody fed, let's get out of here. You come back to a dirty house. I don't know. We fell into that trap very early on, and we regret that. And it didn't last very many years at all. And then we quickly got out of that. And my husband was like, I don't think they need any of this to be like well-rounded children. I think they can just play. Like, let's just let them play. That's a good idea. And that's free, by the way. Let them play out in the woods, let them build forts. And go take them and do whole family activities. If you want to all learn karate together as a family, great. If you all want to go swim classes together as a family, great. If you want to go to the park and go hang out, or if you want to make a little retreat in your backyard and everybody pinches tents and you're having fun in the backyard, like, that's great. That's more wholesome. It's way more fun, way less pressure. and the kids just learn to be free and not constrained to all of the schedules and nonsense. And so, yeah, I guess the last thing, there's so many things that we can talk about on here, but we're running out of time here. So I was just saying, never turn down hand-me-downs. So hand-me-down clothes are great. I still buy a lot of used clothing for my kids, even on eBay. You can go on there and say you need size 8 boys jeans. I will just type in lot of size 8 boys jeans, and you end up getting like really nice, set of jeans that are probably nicer than maybe what you would have bought quality wise, and it's cheaper, and you get to reuse somebody else's clothing, and chances are they're not living on a farm, so um, the jeans aren't destroyed like your children's jeans are going to be, my children's. So I do that a lot. I do that with shoes a lot. Whenever somebody needs a new pair of boots, I go on eBay. I'll type in whatever boot size I'm looking for, and I will get them for like half price used. And I love doing that. I'm all about that. Um, let's see. Yeah, and that goes for myself and my husband as well. If we're looking for things, if it's not something that's really, really specific, I mean, we're grown-ups, we're not growing anymore. So sometimes it's worth it to invest in something that's, more specific for yourself. But definitely for kids that are going to be in and out of it in 6 months, or it's going to be destroyed in 6 months, like shoes. It's just worth it to just go ahead and buy it used. And then I just have on here, I to tie back into the foods, buying bulk foods, also learning how to can food, learning how to freeze food, invest in some freezers and freeze stuff when you see things on sale, especially meats nowadays on sale. Buy it and freeze it. Make sure you have a generator. Get yourself a little generator. Sam's Club is great for that. And but the other thing is eliminate any unnecessary luxury services like cable TV bills. We never had one of them. I think maybe the first year we got married, we might have had a cable bill, but then we got rid of it. But we've never had that, and that's expensive, I know. Expensive cell phone plans, membership plans, subscription plans, anything like that that you can eliminate. Just don't believe that if you're a young mom on here, or a young parent, just don't believe the hype that you have to pay for all of these clubs and memberships and things for you or your child to live like a good, satisfied, like healthy, well-rounded life. You just don't have to do that. You just think outside the box, and you'll be way, way better off for it. All right, let me go through real quick here. We have a couple minutes left. Prep for Eternity says most churches and some pastors lack the courage to promote children. Gone are the days in believing God blesses the quiver full. Yes. Yeah, it's sad. Prep for Eternity, a lot of times the only people who believe that children are a blessing, it seems like these days, that I bump into are Catholics. And that is sad. That's like to our shame that we've bought into a lot of these lies. And I think that a lot of it is because of the lies that society puts on us. Christian parents believe these things. Caitlin's family farm. So many people in my circle thought they should gain wealth first, then have kids. And now they're too old and having troubles. Yeah, that's another thing. That is another thing. They want to get all their financial things in a row. You have to finish college, you have to buy a house, you have to get all set up, and get your house all set up, and then you can have a baby. And that is a lie. That is not true at all. Shaquan says, hey, everyone, missed the beginning. Yeah, just recently watched a documentary about childlessness issue that's going to majorly impact society and especially the single elderly people. Yeah, how sad. Single elderly. I used to serve elderly people. I used to work with the elderly for a few years. And there's nothing sadder than single elderly people that don't have children. It's just such a lonely end of life. Elizabeth Gonzalez says, good evening, ladies. Have been enjoying the series. Thanks for doing them. You're welcome, Elizabeth. I'm glad that you're here. Christine says, I love going to baby showers, especially with my girls. Yeah, it was super fun. Miss Grace was like in her heyday. She just volunteered herself. There was lots of other little girls there, but she volunteered herself to just go right up there, and she took all the presents to the mama and made sure that she had all the gifts, and she did that for a while, and then she took all the wrapping paper and all the extra stuff and carted all that away, and she was just having a blast. She loved all of it. Of course, the little food and the little finger foods and all that was super fun too. Prep for Eternity says, we have always given our children small, simple parties until 10, then just cake and homemade meal of choice. Yeah, I mean, family parties is where it's at. That's all I had growing up. That's all my husband had growing up. It was like, hey, it's your birthday. We're going to have cake and invite your grandparents up, because my grandparents lived like 2 minutes up the road. That was it. That was like happy birthday. There was no big deal. The big deal has been, I think, in my generation and younger, is really hyped up these birthday things. Christine says, my kids get to pick the meals for their special day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I make their favorite cake too. Yeah, I mean, that's what I do too. It's just like, it's your birthday. Just try to make them feel special. Let them pick out something special to eat. And, that's pretty much it. Like if they need something, like my older boys, I like to be a blessing to them, that like if they really needed something like a new pair of boots or something, mostly 99% they pay for all their own stuff anyway. My older boys they function like adults. So they take care of all of their own stuff, all their own bills, all their own clothing. They take care of all their needs. They even pay for their own doctor's appointments sometimes, which I'm like, you don't have to do that. Like, we're still your mom and dad. But they're just really independent. So if there's an opportunity where I'm like, hey, let me and daddy buy you a pair of boots or something, I enjoy doing that. But that's not always. All right. Tammy says, I'm late to the party, but hey, hey, Tammy. Yeah, so I'm about to hop off of here. I had a super fun night. I think this is a conversation worth having, and it's really important. So don't forget to have these conversations with you, and with church family too. We do not need to be conformed to the world's thoughts and ideas, for sure. So with that, y'all, I'm gonna leave y'all here, and it is a rainy thunderstorm outside, um, which is kind of unbelievable for July. So I am happy about that. And not rolling my eyes at you. I'm looking at what's going on up here on this computer. So anyway, with that, I'm going to say goodnight, and I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful night. Tomorrow, we will be live on our main channel talking about the parenting course. So if you have any questions about that, or you just want to be nosy, you can hop over there, and that's where me and my husband are going to be tomorrow. And the boys are also going to be live. They're launching their new young men's course. So that's where you're going to find us tomorrow. And I will be back on here, Lord willing, day evening. So y'all have a super blessed rest of your weekend, Lord's Day, and we will see you. I will see some of you, hopefully, tomorrow night. Bye-bye, guys.